We had some rather interesting comments today from EA, or rather from EA CFO Blake Jorgensen, and he made a few comments when talking about why EA isn't jumping fully on board with VR at the moment. Now, he made these comments at a Morgan Stanley Technology, Media and Telecom conference today when discussing VR, and what did he have to say? Well, that basically combined, the PS4 and Xbox One sales have reached 60 million, and this is actually up from his estimation of 55 million console sales at the end of last year. And he basically referenced this console figure as to why EA isn't jumping on the VR bandwagon just yet. Basically, it's as you might expect. At the moment, VR is unproven with a small install base because, well, the platforms aren't even out yet, and of course, at least for the two platforms we know the price for, it's pretty damn expensive, and at least for the foreseeable future, like this year probably, it's going to be for the power user, for the enthusiast who can actually afford to get an early adopter version of VR. You know, as I've said many times now, as we go further into VR's lifespan, manufacturing will get cheaper, we'll get newer versions of the hardware, and basically more people will be able to buy it, and there'll be a bigger install base, and all the bugs and issues would have been ironed out. And he also said that before a company such as EA would consider spending, say, $50 to $100 million to build a full VR game, the market size for the devices needs to grow to the level of consoles. And he described the console markets today as large, which is a bit of an understatement. And basically estimated the PS4 and Xbox One to make up about 60 mil and 150 mil plus for the PS3 and Xbox 360 combined. However, that doesn't mean there's nothing VR coming from EA at all. Basically, he teased that they're working on smaller vignette-style VR games. However, these haven't yet been announced. But he did say rather that if VR does take off, EA is well suited to bring content to devices because, well, they have basically nicely consolidated their game engine and development processes. Now, obviously, this is an estimation, and he probably has a little bit of insider information, but you should still take his comment about the sales with a rather large pinch of salt. But given that we know that the PlayStation 4 has sold close to 36 million units worldwide, that does give you, of course, at least a rough estimation of the PS4 and Xbox One worldwide. As we know, Sony are fairly free with their figures, but Microsoft don't tend to discuss them at least in too much detail. So it's nice to at least have a rough estimation, even if it's a bit inaccurate because, you know, the source. So basically, EA are going to wait on VR and wait and see what happens, which, to be honest, I can see why they think that. It is a very new thing. It's probably going to take quite a while before the install base is, you know, larger than, say, the power user, and of course the people who can afford it, you know, as it becomes cheaper, yada yada yada. Companies such as EA are going to be attracted to it, but I don't see them wanting to wait too long, because of course some pretty big names have already thrown their hats in the ring for VR, and of course it's not even out yet. Of course, will be out in a few months' time. So I don't see them waiting terribly long, but it depends how much they want to stick to his comment. If it has to be the size of consoles, it's probably going to be quite a while before it gets to that degree. Obviously, it's even taken the consoles a while to get to that degree, so I don't know if it's a bit of a risk to wait that long to get into VR, but of course, it really depends on the market and what happens. You know, this is not set in stone. This is like, hey, this is what I'm saying now before VR's even come out, so some interesting comments nonetheless, and a bit of perspective on EA's thoughts on VR, as well as, of course, some little tidbits as to how the PS4 and Xbox One have been doing. So, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.